A cordless rivet tool unlike any other that we've tested. Well, this is the Metabo Cordless 18V Rivet Tool, and it does more than just... This is the Metabo 18V Cordless Rivet Nut Tool, or nut-sert tool, or Rivnut tool, whatever you want to say those. All those mean the same thing. We've been waiting for one of these, and now we finally got one. We're pretty excited. Let's get started. This is actually one of the coolest tools I've seen come out in a while. I say that because I've been waiting for one of the major tool companies to do this for a couple of years now. In fact, I've requested it from several of them, and it took Metabo to do this. This is a cordless Rivnut gun, or rivet nut gun, or nut-sert tool. So you get the rivet nut tool. Get this little tool. I'll show you what that does in a few moments. A manual, and that's actually useful. And 2 wrenches that you can probably do what they do by hand, so you probably don't need them, but in a bind, they are there if you need them. So we'll put those back in there, those back in there. So as I mentioned, this is the Metabo 18V Cordless Rivet Nut Tool, or Rivnut tool, or as I mentioned, nut-serts a lot of time is what people call them. Now this does not come with a battery, but I've got a battery, so let's slide one on there. That'll help let it stand up. This is the little 2 amp hour, which will work absolutely fine for this tool. And out of the box, this will do nut-serts or rivet nuts from 4mm, 5mm, and 6mm. However, you can also get the hardware to do up to 10mm or M10 hardware, M10 fasteners in aluminum, and then M8 in steel, which this is basically a mild steel application right here. So you can go up to an M8 with this, which I believe that's an M6. And then in stainless steel, you can go up to an M6, which is what we have right here. The model number is the NMP 18LTX BL-M10. Metabo always has some nice long model numbers for their tools. Regardless, you'll probably just know it as a Rivnut tool. Back here on the back, not only do we have a cap, which looks a lot like your typical rivet tools that kind of catch the blind rivets. That's not what this does. It's actual hardware here in the back. So you've got some extra stuff, and we'll go over what that is here in a moment. And back here on the back as well, this little tool, you can actually insert it right here, and it will turn some things. And again, we'll get to that here in a moment. So very useful back cap here that houses some stuff as well as provides access to the actually turning the shaft in there. When we turn this tool on, basically just by putting a battery on it and kind of pulling the trigger, you see a number display here. It might be hard to see in the camera. Right now it's saying 40, and I can hit the plus sign and take that up. There, it lit up a little brighter now, and I can take that all the way up. And by the way, if you hold it down, it jumps by 10s. So I can take that all the way up to 89 or 90, and I can go all the way down to 1. That's basically the pulling force, and that will change based off of what type of rivet nuts you're using, as well as what type of material you're using. And you may have to just do some a little bit of testing for what you're going to be using this for. Now we get a hanger here right on the top, so if we needed to hang that, whether it's off your tool belt or you want to hang it, you know, on a hook somewhere, you can do so right there, and then that folds away there as well. By the way, you can also have different memory sets here. That's what the S is there for. You can hold that down and actually set 9 different memories. We also get 3 LEDs here on the front, so that's going to shine. And there's a lot of automation going on in this tool as well. Looks like a little hand guard here. Not sure what that's for, but obviously probably to protect your fingers. Now let's take a look at what this does. So basically these are threaded inserts. So in a situation where maybe you have some rectangle tubing, or you've got some plate, maybe you're building a trailer, you're doing fabrication on building ambulances, fire trucks, things like that. Just a slew of different things, RVs, you name it, but you need to actually have some threaded holes, and maybe the material's not thick enough to actually thread. This one may be if you're needing to hold light duty stuff, but anyway, you're not going to get a lot of threads cut in that. Plus you'd have to drill, then take a tap and tap it, and then run your hardware in there. Well, with this, basically what we can do, and you know, another way would be actually welding a nut to the backside, which that creates another hassle of having to get in there with a welder or drill a hole big enough to slide your nut through and then have to weld up on the outside and keep from actually welding up the threads. Regardless, so now we take our nut-sert or our rivet nut and we can slide it in the hole, and what this tool is going to do is basically mushroom it on the backside to actually keep that in place. So you can see the different kind of teeth there on that rivet nut, and that's going to keep that in place so we can run our hardware in. And especially if you're in the weather and you want to use stainless hardware, there you go. There's some stainless rivet nuts right there. Now let's quickly run one of these in, and then we'll talk about it here in a second. So I'm going to take my little rivet nut and I'm just going to start it just a couple of threads, and then I'm going to hold the trigger. You see it's going to thread on. I can let go of the trigger. Now I'm going to grab this piece of angle, and you'll see right here, and I'm going to hold it and keep holding the trigger, and then I'm going to let go because it's going to spin that out. Now you see it's still attached to that, so that's where I could actually spin this tool around, or I could grab my little tool right here and I could turn this until it lets that go. And now there's a real remedy to that as well, and we'll go over that here in 1 second as well. But just wanted to show you what this tool is used for. Now you see that we just basically inserted that tool, that rivet nut, and now it's locked into place, and we can screw our bolts in there or hex heads or whatever we're doing, and that's retained in that angle iron. Now you'll also see that I was setting on 1. I didn't do that on purpose, but you see basically the pulling force was on 1, so that was very, very limited, and that's why I really didn't pull that too tight there. So let's turn this up. Let's turn it up to 40. And I'm going to go ahead. You're not supposed to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So now we're going to get another pull on it. And you see it pulled it a lot tighter now, so that's going to give you a lot better bite when you're using the correct pulling force. Now you don't want to go too far either, and also there's a chart here in this book, right here in the manual. If you open it up right on the inside page, kind of labels all the parts in here. It also gives you a setting, and it's really just kind of a starting point, and you can still see for steel. I believe we just did an M5. No, we did an M4, and it says start at 40, which I think we went to 41. At first we did 1, now we did 41, so we were right in that window where we should be. Now let's take a closer look what's going on with this complete tool. In fact, let's just take this back off, and you'll see it's pretty cool. So right here inside the cap, you can actually rotate that inside, and so first, there's these big tips, and then also you have this part here. And let's just see, and as you can see that there's basically one of these coincides with one of these, and it's just a sizing thing. So there's the one for the M6. And if we look here, here's the one for the M4. And the one on the tool is the M5, which is right in between. Now this is where you could actually use the wrenches to take these tips off. But really and truly, if you're using this regularly, you can typically spin them off by hand unless you're putting them on real tight. And you really don't have to take this whole snout off. You're just taking these first 2 off here. Pretty self-explanatory once you understand this. And if you've messed with these tools before, then you totally understand. But basically there's kind of a lock ring right here that you'll need to reuse. And so there's the M6 cap, and here's the M6 tip. So this threads on, however this sleeve slides back and it retains that. So you pull it back and now you can just spin this off. And as long as you don't over tighten it, you'll be able to spin it off by hand and again, not need a wrench. And then I'll put on the M6, which again, I'm going to want to slide that collar back. Spin that in. I'm going to let it bottom out and then kind of back it up until it slides into that location. Okay, so that's all the way flush and that collar won't slide back. So I'm going to loosen it until that'll pop in there and now I'm good to go. So now that's not over tight and when I need to pull that off I can. And so now I can put this on, but I first want to put on my lock ring. And this can be handy too, understanding how all this works also. So first I'm going to bottom it out against the cap. Put it in there. Now, here's how you actually operate the tool. Let's put this cap on the back first. Let's put these away, which by the way, there's the first one that goes down in there. It's kind of hard to line up once you drop it in. Kind of got to bounce it around till it falls all the way to the bottom. And then the next one slides in easy. Then we lock it into place right there, put it on the back, and now it's nice and handy when we need it. Okay, now we have on our M6 fastener here, or our M6 hardware. So I'm going to look on my sheet here, and for steel, M6 is 60, and for stainless steel, it's 85. So we'll first do the steel. So let's take this up to 60. Again, you can see I can just press it, and it will go by ones, and if I hold it down, it'll go by tens. Now what we want to do is take this little rivet nut, and I just want to start it, a couple of threads. That's good right there. And so now what I want to do is hold the rivet nut and hold the trigger down. Once it stops, let go of the trigger. Now the next time I'll hold the trigger down again and that's where it will pull it. But first what I want to do, here's what I like to do. I like to take this outside cap and I like to spin it till it seats against that rivet nut. And that should be the same each time you put a rivet nut on there. And now I know it's going to start pulling right away. It's not going to pull that gap out and then have to start pulling. Now it's going to pull right away. So I've got it on 60. And let's insert it there in the hole. And then I'm going to hold the trigger and keep holding. So you see it pulled it and then it actually backed the threads out as well. That didn't back it all the way out, but just a quarter turn, and now it basically fell out. So I didn't have to get my tool out to get it out. And that's what helps in backing this off. That ensures that when it backs the threads off, when it actually spins this inside, that it will actually spin it off as you need it. So that's why I like to back that cap out to where it meets the base of that rivet nut. And let's do one more M6 steel. So I'm going to start that, pull the trigger. And now we're bottom out against this. And you'll see here, once I put that in there and pull the trigger, now it actually pulled out without me having to twist it. So now that's in there nice and tight. You can see it's mushroomed right there against the steel. And that's ready for hardware, ready for a fastener. Now let's crank this up to 85. And now we'll go to our stainless steel hardware. So M6 stainless, same thing. Make sure it's threaded on, hold the button, and make sure we're seated against it. Now on the stainless steel, pull the trigger and hold. Now it backs it out. And now that stainless steel hardware is set in there and ready for your stainless bolts. Now let's take this back off and go back to our M5, which is going to be the one that's in between. Now again, slide our collar back, seat this all the way down, and then back it off till the collar slides over. There we go. Now take our M5 hardware, again, just get it started. Give it a pull. And now again, you see that gap there. I want to take my cap and slide it out till I meet that gap. And again, now I know it's going to start pulling right away. Okay, so now start that again. Start it, pull the trigger. Now I'm bottom out against that, and that's ready to pull. Now I can back this down, because obviously we don't want 85 now. We do have stainless, but we're doing M5 stainless, which again, let's take a look. Stainless steel M5, let's go to 50. Let's leave it at 55. Should be fine there. Put it in there. Pull the trigger, backs it out, and it's nice and locked in there. And now all of these are now ready for fasteners, which it works great. As you can see in this application, sheet metal and aluminum, sheets of aluminum, things like that, works really, really well for those, as I mentioned. So think about building trailers, RVs, even like your specialty emergency vehicles and things like that. The ability to hang cabinets, hang brackets, just about anything with these nut-serts, and it really speeds up the process when you're doing manufacturing and certain types of fabrication as well. Now, this is one of those specialty tools that you probably spotted right away of whether or not you really needed this or you really don't. And when we talk about the pricing, that's even going to provide that larger chasm between those who want this tool and those who will actually buy it. So this is actually $1,430 for the tool. Yes, that's a big chunk to bite, but again, if you're in fabrication where you're building things where you need to put those nut-serts in and you're using a manual tool, then you know how handy something like this could be, because when you're squeezing those things off all the time with the manual crimpers and having to deal with the different dies and that sort of thing, this can save a lot of time for you. So check it out. You'll know whether or not you need this tool and whether or not you want to spend that $1,400. So we'll have a link in the description. Also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And hey, if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.